interplanetary host, Travis Montgomery. These views reflect one planet and one planet alone. Greetings. Welcome to another episode of Mercury's Cast. I'm your interplanetary host, Travis Montgomery. There is no Kenny today. There is no guest. It is just me, and we are going to probably mostly talk about one topic, which is going to be the idea and therefore the plans of sending humans to Mars for various different reasons and different kind of complications that we will go into. And basically we're going to geek out on some space stuff, and why not, since the podcast is called Mercury. I mean, it doesn't seem that far off to start talking about more about space stuff, and that is not the reason why I want to do that. I think this is a very fascinating venture into the expansion of humanity and technology as a whole. This is going to be something that, has never been done before. And while it has been argued that there have been advanced civilizations before the rise of our current peoples that started probably 20,000 years ago, we know no one before us has reached our current level of technology. We can say this for sure because we are at the point of making plans to colonize Mars, and if anyone before us had gotten this far and made it there to continue the expansion of the human race, they would already be there looking back at us. And a lot of historical sites have been found, and even recently the pyramids being dated back to further than ancient Egypt. No civilization has gotten as far as we are right now. The chances of a previous civilization reaching the potential of the internet was very slim to begin with, but now we can put to rest the argument of any previous civilization being more advanced than we currently are, because we are getting ready to colonize another planet. And we have sent spacecraft all throughout our solar system, and we have not discovered any kind of structures or any evidence of life. And most of the spots aren't even capable of it, except for Mars and possibly a couple moons here and there. So let's talk about Mars. Mars has a 24-hour, 38-minute day cycle, while Earth's is very similar at 24.25 minutes. It's going to come into play with people's circadian rhythm, which is where your brain detects night from day and your sleep cycle. There's certain colors that come into play that help you fall asleep, and blue is not one of them. So this is kind of an issue for people that might potentially go there. If their circadian rhythm is easily distracted, it could cause a problem on their sleep cycle, and we're definitely going to want our astronauts rest, when they're there. And Mars has 2 moons. It's a lot smaller than Earth. It has a lighter density in its outer core. Same kind of inner core as Earth, which makes it a terrestrial planet, having a completely metal solid core and a slightly less dense outer core. And it's less dense than Earth that we have, so we will have less trouble drilling for anything that we might find of use, including permafrost, which we could turn into water. And it's permafrost because Mars is significantly colder than Earth, not uninhabitably colder. It's survivable with our technology and our gadgets. They're not going to freeze. But it's something that these brilliant minds that are taking people to Mars that are going to have to deal with. So hopefully we land on one of these low-lying plains, which is much of Mars, but Mars is also home to a couple of the biggest volcanoes in our solar system that we can see around us, and Hopefully we don't land into one of them. One of them's about a couple thousand kilometers wide. So, yeah, that would just be bad if we sent our Mars spacecraft over there and they just fell into a volcano. That wouldn't be good. I don't think that would be good at all. So much of what makes Mars red is its iron-rich minerals. It's not because it's warmer. I always thought that because it was red, it meant like it was on fire. No, that's Mercury. Oh, yeah, that's happened to be the name of the podcast, too. Closest to the sun. Why wouldn't it be the hottest planet? It's also the densest planet, and it spins the slowest. I don't know if that has anything to do with the host, but I hope not. So the surface pressure is, it's a fraction of what Earth's is, and the escape velocity is about half. So leaving Mars is not as hard as leaving Earth, which makes the trip back, if you have the resources, not as hard. But obviously we wouldn't have the resources on Mars that we do on Earth, which makes the trip back that much more difficult. So let's talk about the trip now. There is a certain window of time that you can leave for the shortest amount of time to Mars or to even hit it. Mars has a more oval-shaped elliptical orbit around the sun than the Earth does, which is more spherical, I guess, more like a circle. I don't know. They're different. So you have to leave at a certain time for this 6-month trip because at the shortest amount, given all the mathematics of these astrophysicists who figure all this stuff out, it's going to take 6 months if you leave at the right time. Okay, so it takes 6 months to get there, and if all your calculations are right, you'll land in a nice flat plane, and you'll be able to land safely. But on the way there, it's going to be 6 months with a couple of people in the size of an SUV. Okay, you got to imagine you're going to be talking, breathing, pooping, pissing, farting, and all the while having to maintain any kind of damage that's going on, anything that could go wrong. What kind of person do you need for this mission? Okay, there's so many different factors that go into it. During this trip, you need people that can entertain, heal a wound, repair a damaged device, and even while you're there, maybe a rover, have political and religious disbeliefs. So if you hate the person that you're with, you cannot be a team, because that's another part of this, is that the camaraderie and the teamwork that goes along with pulling this mission off, it's crazy, because you have to be in extreme isolation without freaking out, right? So that's a psychology part that has to go into it. Rapidly applying new info on the fly and working with everyone to achieve the best possible outcome. Okay, so this is all the stuff that, all the while not freaking out that you are in a pod traveling away from Earth, and there's a chance that you're never going back. So the mind that has to take this mission is going to be absolutely crazy. And I'm sure the training and the selection process that goes into it is going to be very extensive for the different agencies that are trying to pull this off, which there are a couple, and I will get into the different agencies and their different plans on how they're trying to pull this off. During the trip, the astronauts are going to experience muscle atrophy and bone density loss due to the loss of gravity that the human bodies are used to. So this is one of the things during the trip that they're going to have to combat. Obviously, food and water being another source where they're going to have to fit everything into a SUV for 6 months of survival. And, the astronauts done pretty good on the freeze-dried food, and the water I'm pretty sure this is something that they're going to have to figure out, where they're going to poop. But it seems that, these smarter people than I are making these plans that I couldn't tell you about. Maybe in a later episode, we'll break all these things down, but, stuff to think about. Russia, talking about the bone density stuff, the longest running time for anyone, of course the Russians have done it, is 500 days, zero gravity. And when you get back, you're not the same. It's not even just your muscle density and atrophy. It's your emotions, and it's a lot different. The human body's not used to being in zero gravity for very long periods of time. And another thing to consider is, can a woman hold a pregnancy in zero gravity? Is that possible? Something else to think about for anyone who cares to think about the trip to Mars. So there's a certain trajectory and a certain velocity that you leave Earth at. And after that, we don't really have the power to turn left or right. So our mathematics have to be completely on, and there has to be no other outlying circumstances that affect the trajectory. Because once we hit space, that's it. We're relying on everything that we know. And there's a chance that whoever's on board doesn't really make it to Mars because they just missed the planet due to, it could be a mechanical error. It could be, solar wind, if that's even a thing. Who knows? And there's a lot of stuff that we can't predict that could happen, that we need some people on board who can fix stuff, who can act in a on-the-fly manner to correct these circumstances. And us at home are going to be like, you need to fix it. People, they're going to be worried about their life, or we're going to be worried about, you need to just fix this so you can get there. Screw your life. Get to Mars so we can do all these things. And that's coming up in a little bit. But so, yeah, the trajectory, it's pretty much like shooting an arrow into the sky and hoping that it lands where we hope it will. And these people are so smart with their mathematics that, yes, it is true. And we've done a lot of great things as far as sending these spacecrafts around. Even Pluto, we just reached the outer rim of our solar system, and a lot of interesting things are happening. But you never know. That one scenario, as soon as we put a human in the capsule and we shoot them off, that something could happen. So on the way there, they might be growing plants or breeding rodents for protein. There have been experiments in the space station where they've grown lettuce, they've grown other vegetables that are able to grow in zero gravity. Potatoes apparently aren't one of them, and they're trying. But, mice, rabbits, other rapid producing animals, and fast-growing vegetables, some that can sustain different climates. These are all things that they're going to be taking into consideration on the way there, and they're not just going to be sitting around, just looking at Mars on their GPS. The training will continue on the way there to, prepare them for the challenges that they will deal with when they get there. It's like taking the summer off between 4th and 5th grade. You pretty much forget everything that you learned in the 4th grade. So why not keep it refreshing in your brain on the way there while learning some new stuff? You don't want to just get to Mars and be like, oh, let me remember all that stuff that I was supposed to do 6 months ago and for 10 years of training. It's not that quite that simple, and I hope that anyone that would want to go wouldn't just think it was that simple. Obviously not. But if they happen to forget some stuff and they wanted to communicate, or something goes wrong, they need new information, the signal to carry to Earth and back could be as long as 40 minutes or as close as 3 to 6 minutes, depending on how the orbits are working. I'm not sophisticated enough to tell you when and where 40 minutes would happen and the 3 to 6 minutes would happen, but that is what the smart people are talking about. So, that's what I'm going to relay to you guys. So let's talk about the different missions and the different people involved in this historic event. I mean, this monumental human historic event that is going to go down within, I'd say, 15 to 20 years. So let's get into it. It's good to see private companies coming out to do this type of research and exploratory work where there could not be, any profit involved. It's just for the sake of the progression of humankind. I can really appreciate something like that rather than just being a company that is completely focused on profit, where a lot of this stuff is investing in just new ideas and new technology that may not reap those benefits at the end. Something like Walmart or, I don't know, Samsung. Maybe they're bad examples, but just a pure for profit company. There's these private companies that are stepping up and they're doing, pretty much humankind's work. And, my hat's off to them. And NASA is also involved, which, as they should be. Who would not expect them to be? But they're not even at the forefront of the pushing of this idea forward of going there and actually doing this, which is feasible. It's doable. And NASA is still in the premature stages while we have these private companies out there putting their nuts on the table, and they're willing to take some more risks than NASA is. So our first risk taker is a man who developed a new way of harnessing wind energy, made his fortune that way, and decided to sell it for his Mars One trip, which you can go to mars1.com, and this is where you will find all of the information on him. His plan seems to be the most effective and in-action plan right now, with a complete timeline of completion on when they are going to send people, and a pretty detailed plan on how this is all going to work out. He's had over 200,000 people volunteer to go upon his mission, and they're going to narrow it down to about 4 or 5 people, train them for 10 years, and then they're going to blast them off. This seems to be the most in progress mission that we have right now. So like I said, 200,000 people have applied. They're going to break it down and choose the crew by 2017. And in 2017, the training begins. The training will include being enclosed in a location for a long period of time, repairing habitat and the rovers, training in medical procedures, learning to grow food in the habitat, stuff that I've already said. And they'll have outposts set up on Earth that will be in similar conditions, like in Antarctica, and another one in the desert, to try to replicate the situations that they will face on Mars. In 2022, one rover will be sent and one trailer will be sent to Mars. The rover can use the trailer to transport the landers and the outpost location. On Mars, the rover drives around, choosing a region that will best fit the location for the settlement. Ideally, can be located far enough north for the soil to contain enough water, close enough to the equator to produce maximum solar power, and flat enough to facilitate the construction of the settlement. Like I said, it's really flat. A lot of it is, with the exception of some crazy volcanoes. And with the settlement location is determined, the rover is going to prepare the surface for the arrival of the cargo missions, which is coming right after that. So they send a rover to kind of scope it out, and hopefully it lands there in time, and then they're going to start sending some equipment. That's the plan of this Mars One mission. Not only will the supplies sent in 2025 be giving them tools and housing, it's also going to be setting up future energy storage and stuff that they can use before they get there. So apparently it's going to be ready for them. I guess, all this sounds good in theory. whether or not they can pull it off, I mean, they got the money to do the research. Everything seems feasible, but in practice, I don't know. We're heading into uncharted territories here, and I wish for the best, but a part of you has to think that with all this mathematics involved and all this uncertainty, it's got to be like one of the worst scenarios ever to shoot some human beings into space to land on a rock, and they don't land on the rock. It's got to be, I don't know. At any rate, they're going to send some kind of spacecraft ahead of time that the Mars One mission will dock to, that will ultimately propel them into space from a low Earth orbit on their way to Mars as the first country / whatever, Netherlands. They seem to be at the forefront. A lot of people want NASA to be. All right. So, I guess we could talk about the NASA plan, which, I mean, they don't even really have a plan right now. Everything's in a planning stage. It would be illegal for Congress or for NASA to send someone to Mars right now because Congress hasn't approved that kind of a budget. And NASA is a government agency that needs money. And a lot of that money is going to war. I think if we, instead of killing human beings, we were researching and sending human beings to other planets that are possibly habitable, and we wouldn't be wiped out by some kind of crazy virus, some asteroid, some volcano that blocks out the sun for a year and then we all die. There's a lot of things that we could be investing our money in instead of trying to kill other people that we don't agree with. And I'm not saying that we don't need to be there, but the amount of money, right? And then our trillions and trillions of dollars deficit. What the fuck? Okay, anyways, John Charles is chief scientist at NASA's Human Resource Program. Their goal is to send astronauts to Mars. He describes it as 30-ish risks that are involved, including exposure to radiation, which was not covered in the Mars One story. This one will be a 2.5-year mission. 18 months will be spent on Mars. They will have tasks to do every day. We don't want to just send them there. We want to get them back. And I guess with the Mars One program, there was some speculation about, having the manpower to send them back. But, NASA is a little deeper than just one man's dream. NASA is pretty much an international agency, and they're going to do this shit right. They're not going to send people there without the ability to get them back. A high probability. I'm talking 95, 99%. There's no 100% guarantee that you get back from your mission to Mars. But, hey, it's all good. It hasn't been approved yet. It's in the learning phase. What they want to do is send people there for 18 months where they could do some tests. They can, observe some differences in the atmosphere. They can be on the ground. They got a lot of stuff going on. It's still in the beginning phases, so not a lot to say, really, but they have some different ideas from the Mars one, like they're recycling their water, which means they're going to be filtering piss, and then they're going to start drinking it, which is kind of cool. I've done the same thing by accident, but I pissed into a beer, so you can't really count that. But their mission is they're going to send a spacecraft to the space station where they do most of their research, along with the anti-gravity research that I was talking about earlier. That's where I was getting a lot of that from, was this John Charles character. So he's the head scientist at the Human Resource Program, and they want to send people to Mars to do a lot of research to figure out if this is actually feasible, because they're being a little more pragmatic than this Dorp guy. He's just sending people there and, hey, we're going to figure it out. I'm not saying it's that simple. I'm sure they have a lot of good research, but NASA, with the money that goes into it, I think they're a little more careful about just blasting people off into fucking metal tubes for 6 months, you know? So they have an idea on how they can pull water out of the atmosphere. There seems to be a lot of hydrogen in the air. They use the oxygen gun. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to that part. But yeah, they're going to do that. They're going to do it. They're totally going to fucking do it. And the other guy's Elon Musk. He's going to send his Red Dragon. And we're not talking about medieval times here. The Red Dragon sounds like the best idea just because that's the coolest name I've heard so far. And Elon Musk is pretty damn cool with the stuff that he's able to do, except for his exploding machine that happened in recent history. But that's all right. You know, his hit to fail rate is pretty low as far as I'm concerned. But Elon Musk wants to colonize Mars too. He's going to come out later in this month of September 2016 with his ideas of how he's going to do it, which is probably going to be different from the Mars One trip. And different from the NASA One trip in the fact that we're probably going to try and get these people back. Okay. All right. So getting people back. Going back to the NASA trip. There's a window of trajectory that we have to put people on Mars. There's also a window to get back. Since their orbits are so different, after you get to Mars through the quickest route, you have about 30 days to then prepare to leave Mars to get back to Earth. But that's not the plan for NASA and our boy over there. They want to stay 18 months. And why would you go there to just plant a flag and then turn around? No, they want to go there. They want to actually learn about this place before we try and go back, which seems a little more pragmatic than just saying, hey, we're going to go there and build some houses and hopefully get some people back. You know what I mean? I would put my money on NASA being able to pull it off, but I wouldn't count the Mars One out. And Elon Musk, I don't know. This guy seems to be he's another private company that is going to, you know, make some shit happen on this forefront. He might be the one to actually pull it off in the best manner, but we don't know yet because he hasn't unveiled his plans. He's only said that he wants to send a Red Dragon in 2018, 2020, and 2022, and then his human transport in 2025. So there you go. Within 10 years, we are shooting, pissing, cursing, farting, shitting human beings into space in a tiny capsule for the future of the human race. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. One thing to note. When this happens, it's probably going to be broadcasted as a reality TV event, no matter where it happens. So the whole world is going to see it. It's going to be like, I mean, maybe the Truman Show would be the only thing that you can compare it to, because everyone's going to be watching, and it's exciting. And damn it, I don't think enough people are getting excited about it. A lot of people don't even think that it's going to happen, or maybe they're not thinking about it. Well, it's time to start thinking about it, because we are going to at least attempt it, and I hope it's broadcasted on live TV. And so this has been Mercury's. I'm out of here. Shout out to Elon Musk and all the great people out there trying to expand the human civilization before a fucking asteroid explodes Earth, or we just nuke each other to death and we can try and escape. I mean, we're never really going to escape, but we got a chance, right? All right, so shout out to the fucking human race and step your game up.